Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Swami Prabhupada Anantakoti Vaishnava Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur in sake of whole Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Subhasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Kidai Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Kidai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Kidai Shri Jamuna Mai Kidai Shri Ganga Mai Kidai Bhakti Devi Kidai Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glory is to the Son of Lord. All glory is to the Son of Lord. All glory is to the Son of Lord. Glory is to you. Amma Jana Timarannasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Vishtam Startam Nina Mudare Swayam Bhagavatmayam Dadati Sadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Bhagavatam Sri Rupam Sahajatam Sadhanam Sajivam Sadvetam Sarvatam Vijnasitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Sadhana Lalita Sri Shantam Sa He Krishna Prabhu Dasa
Jagatpate Gopisha Vikakanta Radha Namaste
Saptakam Shrurangi Radhe Radheshri Krishnanuste Namani Hare Vanshakopataru Vyasya Kripasimudyacha Patitanam Pameyo Vaishnavi Namo Namaha Namavam Vishudaya Krishna Putale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Charine Nirvisesha Shunyadi Patsakadeshwadharine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Shri Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Swadamo Bhagate Dhamayana Divesha Kalonasta Dishamesha Purana Kodano Adita. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam
Jai
Śrīla Prabhupada ki
Jai.
So everyone understands this was verse 43 today, is that correct?
Yes.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Yogina Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Yogina Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Yogina Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Yogina Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam.
Ladies?
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena
Bhakti Yogena Yogina
Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yogena Yogina Shemaya Paramulam Me Pravishyanti Atovayam
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena
Bhakti Yogena Yogina
Bhakti Yogena Yogina
Shemaya Paramulam Me
Shemaya Paramulam Me
Pravishyanti Atovayam
Pravishyanti Atovayam
Jnana,
Jnana
with knowledge.
with knowledge
Vairagya,
Vairagya
and renunciation.
and renunciation
Yuktena, equipped. Bhakti Yogena, by devotional service.
by devotional service
Yogina, the yogis. Shemaya, for eternal benefit. Paramulam, feet. Me, my. Pravishyanti, take shelter of. Akuto bhayam, without fear. Translation and purport by Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The yogis equipped with transcendental knowledge and renunciation and engaged in devotional service for their eternal benefit take shelter of my lotus feet, and since I am the Lord, they are thus eligible to enter into the kingdom of Godhead without fear. Purport. One who actually wants to be liberated from the entanglement of this material world and go back home, back to Godhead, is actually a mystic yogi. The words explicitly used here are yuktena, bhakti yogina. Those yogis or mystics who engage in devotional service are the first-class yogis. The first-class yogis, as described in Bhagavad-gita, are those who are constantly thinking of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. These yogis are not without knowledge and renunciation. To become a bhakti yogi means to automatically attain knowledge and renunciation. That is the consequent result of bhakti yoga. In the Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, it is also confirmed that one who engages in the devotional service of Vasudeva Krishna has complete transcendental knowledge and renunciation, and there is no explanation for these attainments. Ahetuki, without reason, they come. Even if a person is completely illiterate, the transcendental knowledge of the scriptures is revealed unto him simply because of his engagement in devotional service. That is also stated in the Vedic literature. To anyone who has complete full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master, all the import of the Vedic literatures is revealed. He does not have to seek separately. The yogis who engage in devotional service are full in knowledge and renunciation. If there is a lack of knowledge and renunciation, it is to be understood that one is not in full devotional service. The conclusion is that one cannot be sure of entrance into the spiritual realm in either the impersonal Dharma Jyoti effulgence of the Lord or the Vaikuntha planets within the Brahmana effulgence, unless he is surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. The surrendered souls are called akuto bhaya. They are doubtless and fearless, and their entrance into the spiritual kingdom is guaranteed. Please repeat the Prabhupada translation after me. The yogis, equipped with transcendental knowledge, and renunciation, and engaged in devotional service, for their eternal benefit, take shelter of my lotus feet, and since I am the Lord, they are thus eligible to enter into the kingdom of God without fear. So Lord Krishna also confirms it in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam Sarvesham Madgatin Ratmana Saravan Bhajate Yo Mam Same Yuttatamo. Of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Now Krishna has very kindly given us everything we need to get out of this world. He comes and speaks Bhagavad Gita, and he comes here and he performs his pastimes, and they are of course recorded in the scriptures, and they are expanded upon by his devotees. Thus we have Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which in essence is called the story of the personality of Godhead. So there's many different narrations about Krishna and his associates, and those who are his devotees, and how they gain perfection within this world. Now this material world, we can ask, what is the purpose of it? Why is it all here? I'm sure you've all asked that question, otherwise we wouldn't be in this room right now. But I remember as a young man, for those who probably haven't had the same background, I mean some of you may have grown up in this sort of background, but deep philosophical subject matters relating to the absolute truth were not very common in my upbringing. Anyway, as a young man I used to wonder, what is this world? What is the purpose of it? Where does it come from? Where are all those billions of planets out there? How are they generated? What is behind them? And then what is beyond them? Because obviously there's no end to it. Is there? There's no end to the world. Because if you come to an end, there's got to be something on the other side of that end. So, those sort of things they used to go through in my mind when it's in place. And then I used to think also, why am I suffering? Trying to enjoy this world. Why? All the time am I frustrated in my activities? Well, the fact is, this world is set up like that. And one who is actually knowledge, he comes to that realization. So somehow or other, we've come to that realization. Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita, Bhavanam Jamanam Ante Kanamam Papatite Vasudeva Salamiti Sama Atma Sudurabha. After many births and deaths, one who is actually knowledge, he surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. opportunity to advance further in our spiritual life. So we come to this world ultimately to forget Krishna. That is the purpose of this whole playground that we see out there. What is the purpose of it? Well, the living entity can come here and imitate the supreme enjoyer, who is Krishna. He's the supreme enjoyer. So there's no place for us in that spiritual world when we have that mentality of wanting to be the enjoyer. They don't go. It doesn't fit. So there's got to be some other place for you if you develop that mentality. If you become envious of the Supreme Lord, then you can't stay there. So Krishna has kindly given us another place, which is this whole vast material world, where you can try and be the enjoyer. But unfortunately, that is not our position. We are not the enjoyer. We are not the supreme enjoyer. But our enjoyment is in relation with the Supreme. It's in relation with the Supreme. Now that is the thing which we are all hankering for in our whole sojourn in this material world. We're hankering for that loving exchange that we've lost, that we've given up. So we've turned our back on Krishna. The fact is, Krishna never leaves us alone. He creates the illusion that we are completely independent and without him. But he also confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Jivanam Sarvabhuteshu. He is the life of all that lives. He also says, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Vitunani Kunteya Jatanti Paradante. This material nature is working under his direction. It's not working under our direction. It appears that we are sometimes the movers and shakers in this world, but the only thing we can do is desire. But ultimately, the material being cannot move 1 millimetre without the intervention of the Supreme Godhead. He is the life of all that is. He also says, Sava Yunishu Kuntaya Modaya Simbhavantiya Tasha Brahma Mahadyogi Aham Bija Buddha. He is the translation of that one. It should be understood that all species of life are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. So Krishna is ultimately behind everything we see. But that is the wonderful mystical magic of Krishna. That he is everywhere and in everything, but we don't see him. Of course, once we engage in the process of devotional service, then we start to see things as they are. So Prabhupada alludes to a verse here, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyasu Vairagyam Kanam Chayatu Haikam. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. Unless we develop some detachment from material activities, it's very difficult to attach ourselves and engage in Krishna consciousness. And also we need some knowledge. Of course, we are very fortunate we have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada, has given us that knowledge and created that piety for us, which enables us to embrace the process and have further progress in spiritual life. Of course, Kali Yuga is a difficult situation. There's another verse in the Bhagavatam, Prayena Payusha Sabya Kali Vasmin Yuge Janaha Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Upadrita. As mentioned by the sages to Sutta Swami, I learned one in this iron age of Kali. Men have got short lives. How long will we live for? How long do we hope to live for? Some people live to 100 years, surprisingly. And that's made up of so many days and so many hours. And actually when you look at life, the time we actually spend, even as aspiring yogis, actually hours in those years that we aspire and spend in actual pursuit of perfection. It's not a long time. All those, say we live 70 or 80 years, how many of those years are actually spent in actual pursuit of the goal of life? There's so much time spending sleeping, so much time spending eating, so much time maintaining the body. Not a lot of time is actually dedicated to spiritual pursuits. And now, so in Kali women have that short life. They are quarrelsome. They're always fighting. Just look at the newspaper, or just look at the news. As Guru Prabhu says, looking at the news gives us the blues. Because it's just full of tragedy. And it's all about quarrel, isn't it? It's quarrel in this age of life. People cannot get along. Even if they have a great situation, they'll find something to become envious of. And always fighting. Now the other quality of Kali Yuga is they're lazy. People are lazy to spiritual life. They're feverishly busy in everything else, isn't it? Madly engaged in all sorts of passionate material pursuits. And that's the symptom of the age of Kali. It's completely materialistic. And there's no shortage of energy for it. Isn't it? There's a new gadget almost daily. And people are feverishly working to try and come up with some new gadget, isn't it? The fastest, the greatest, the sleekest. It does everything for you. Right? Actually, just recently we were thinking of all these advances in the last 20, 30 years or so. How many of those things have actually improved the quality of our lives? You're an experienced man of years in this world. What advances have actually come about that actually improved the quality of life? Most often people will cite the fact that there's been great advances in medicine. But also there are great advances in sinful life which cause the problems in the start anyway. Anyone who understands the nature of this world understands for every action you perform there's a reaction. So how are all these things coming back upon us? There are so many different types of diseases. And many of those diseases are modern diseases. They're modern diseases. So we're creating a lot of trouble for ourselves. So looking back on all those so-called advancements, we wonder, like Śrīmad Bhāgavatam spread this movement with very little modern facility. He had his dictaphone, and he was also using typewriter in those days. But he used the aeroplane, much to his great advantage, and he travelled around the world more than 10 times, I think, in those 12 years, between 65 and 77. So he used those modern facilities to preach Krishna consciousness. He took advantage of those things. So people are lazy to spiritual life, as we said, but they're very busy in materialistic activities. Right? And sometimes we even become affected by that, isn't it? We always think, I want to have that latest and greatest also. So we have to become more energetic in spiritual life, less energetic for these material things. Another quality of people in this age is they are misguided. So there are so many philosophies, there are so many opinions. But there is no opinion, or sound philosophy found that there which is comparable to that which is enunciated in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad-gītā. Nothing compares to it. Nothing else can show us the way throughout this mire. I'm talking about the M-I-R-E, that mire or that maze of material life. How do you find your way consciousness at all. Sometimes we forget how wonderful it is that Lord Krishna has spoken these words to us in Bhagavad Gita and in the Bhagavatam. That these are self-evident truths. And once one starts to practice those in his life, isn't it? As she practices those things, we get to realise them within the heart. It's also mentioned by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitam, Vidamuttamam, Tatyak Shabdamam Dhamyam, Susupam Katam Aviyam. This knowledge is the king of education. It's the king of education. It is the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by way of realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So this is the nature of Bhakti Yoga, everlasting and joyfully performed. Of course, for us, sometimes the going is a little difficult, and we become a little complacent, and it doesn't seem like it's always nectar. And so many struggles daily. And it starts from the time you actually wake up, and you've got to deal with the thing in there called the mind. Right? By nature, the mind is generally negative. It's generally negative. But from the time you wake up, you start to preach to your mind. Actually, we talk about preaching Krishna consciousness, but the most preaching you're going to do in your life is to that mad mind. Every day, you're going to spend so much time, and the mind's going to come up with something, and you've got to remember Krishna verse. No, Krishna says, no. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, offer obeisances and worship me, being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. But the mind has many other suggestions about what you should be doing. But we always have to overcome that mind with our intelligence and not listen to the ravings of the mind. So we are misguided, so we don't have the knowledge that we need. But as we say, Lord Krishna's kind of provided that to us. We just have to give it ear play and act upon that. Now the next quality of Kali Yuga is that we are unlucky. It's such a mess in Kali Yuga that we're very unfortunate and very unlucky that we've taken birth, the people we associate with, and the things that fall upon us. They're quite unwelcome sometimes. Lots of natural disturbances and calamities and diseases. So it's an unlucky age. If you had an option when you could be born, Kali Yuga is not the option you want to choose. Now it also mentions, above all of these qualities that prevail in Kali Yuga, above all, we are always disturbed. We are always disturbed. At least there are threefold miseries, isn't it? There's adhyatmic, there's adibautic, and adiabhatic. So at any moment, you're going to be suffering from one of those three. Maybe if you're asleep and completely unconscious, you may not be suffering. But even in our dreams we're suffering, isn't it? We're suffering from the mind. The mind's harassing us, Often we take the troubles of our day into our dreams at night. And it never ends for us sometimes, our troubles. And sometimes people, they think the only way out of this troublesome life is suicide. But as we know, beyond this life there's another life. So you may end this life, but unfortunately that pain and suffering will go on in some other situation. We have to work to try and understand what is our actual position. Our actual position is one of servant of the Supreme Lord. And as I mentioned before, that is based upon that loving exchange. So instead of loving God, we are placing our affection and our feelings in so many other things. But we were always deeply disappointed by that. As we've already explained before, that Krishna will always pull the rug out from under those arrangements that we try to make to try and be happy in this world. Because ultimately, he's trying to bring us to the point you cannot be happy here. You cannot be happy. Try, you try. Because it's not meant to be your home. I was reading an interesting talk last night and just started to write out. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. And people say, you guys are just so cynical. You don't see any good in anything or anyone. Right? But we have to be realistic. That whatever situation you're trying to create in this world, it will not last. And it's not meant to last. This material world is a house of reform. So eventually, as we mentioned before, Bhavanam Jamanamati Gyanamam Padide. After many, many births, one comes to that knowledge that this life, there's got to be something beyond this life, surely. Now, some people say, oh, you're simply dreamers. Right? You cannot handle life in this world, so you imagine some other phantasmagoria, right, beyond this life. But this life is where it's at, and at the end of this life, everything's done. Right? But we don't buy into that. We've accepted the knowledge given us by Lord Krishna, that the spirit soul is encased in this material body, in this material world. He's kindly given us that facility, but there is a life beyond this temporary world. It's also mentioned in Chaitanya-Chara Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, Sadhu Kabulmai, Shravanadi, Sudachite, Kali Vidurya. I have the translation for that. Who remembers the exact translation of that? Eternal. Here it is. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established. Right? It's eternally established. It's in there. It's eternally established in there. Not just in this heart, which is pumping all the blood around this body, but it's in the very soul of our existence, that eternal love where Krishna is sitting. So it's not something you go and get somewhere else, or ingest it, right? It's already there. It's already there. And that is the very basis of our existence, as I mentioned before, that love and propensity and exchange that we have for the Supreme Lord. So it's not something you go and purchase or get from somewhere else. It's already there within the heart. So when the heart is purified, by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. Now we may think, well, I've been chanting Hare Krishna how many years? 3, 5, 7, 9, 15, 30, 40 years? Is that love naturally awakening? It is awakening because we do have strong feelings towards Krishna and his devotees. We like to engage in the service of Krishna because we get that reciprocation within the heart. It's not an illusion, those tastes that we're getting. And according to our degree of surrender, we'll get that taste. So if we're holding back, if we're always holding back, if we're just sort of giving just a certain amount to Krishna, we will never get that full reciprocation. He's waiting for us to actually completely surrender. It's like Draupadi. She's the famous example. Just threw her arms up in the air, Krishna help me, I'm so fully surrendered. Right? So ultimately that's where we want to be. We want to come to that point of, Krishna, I'm yours. And I have no other desire, nothing else. The trouble is we're sort of only putting up one hand because we've got our arm around all these other things that we just want to hold on to. Right? Please help me, Krishna. We've got all these other things that we want to do. So, Śrīmad Prabhupada also confirms throughout the books, I guess we'd say, the central point of yoga practice is control of the mind. And when the mind is controlled, of course, we make steady progress in Krishna consciousness. So sometimes we forget actually how to engage our minds. Sometimes we get a little lazy and we let the mind just wander, go wherever it wants to go. But the secret to always advancing in Krishna consciousness is to always remember Krishna service and never forget that service. And there are so many verses throughout the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna encourages us. He says, Manmana bhagavam bhakto majjaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktvaivam atmana mantrayana. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, offer obeisances and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. And of course in this age of Kali, things are a little difficult, as we explained, but it's not impossible for us to engage our minds and our bodies in service to Krishna and always have that direction, that connection with Krishna. It depends upon our determination. It depends upon our determination. Of course, and our enthusiasm. Now, determination comes by regulating our lives. It comes by regulating our lives. There's some verses I wanted to read, just from Gita again. Confirmation of that statement. Excuse me, let me just find the thing. He who is regulating the system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desire. So these are amazing verses, these ones we're going to read. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material context. So there's some very encouraging philosophy from Krishna. It's something we can look forward to in the practice of yoga. Now in Kali Yuga, as we explained, life is a little difficult. There was one Australian Prime Minister who was very famous for this saying that life wasn't meant to be easy. Right? Life wasn't meant to be easy. At the time, there were a lot of whinges around complaining about the political situation and he said, no, life wasn't meant to be easy. And life is not easy. That's a fact, isn't it? As we explained before, it starts from the time you get up. So, in this Kali Yuga, spiritual life is also not easy. If you notice, the amount of people who are working against the tide or swimming against the tide in Kali Yuga is not a lot. Amongst how many million people in Melbourne are there? 3.5 million. So how many of those 3.5 million are swimming against the tide of Kali Yuga at this moment? Not so many. It's a difficult tide to swim against. But Lord Chaitanya came specifically to introduce a process for this age which makes that swim against the tide quite simple. And that's the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
There's also another verse in the Bhagavatam, Kali Doshinidhi Rajan Astyeko Mahan Gunaha Kirtanari Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Vajet. My dear King, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one becomes free from material bondage and can be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So we should never underestimate the potency or power of chanting Hare Krishna. Ultimately, it's our life blood, isn't it? How have we become devotees? Generally, it's through the chanting. It all starts with the chanting. Sometimes we dabble, we hear a little bit, but ultimately, our devotional life really begins when we start chanting Hare Krishna, because it's the recommended process for this age. There's also another verse later on in the spoken by Lord Yamaraj by the his messengers. He says, Edavani Loke Slim Pumsam Dharma Parasmita Bhakti Yoga Bhagavati Tam Nama Grahanadi Vir. Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name. So devotional service for all of us, it's our natural position. All the services that we perform, they are akin to the eternal services which are being performed to Lord Krishna in the spiritual realm. So Srila Prabhupada has kindly created this institution where we can perform this process of bhakti yoga very easily. No matter what our social position is. Those who are working in the factory, working in your doctor's surgery, there's a way to engage in that process of bhakti yoga. Firstly by hearing and chanting at every opportunity. For most of us who are working, perhaps that hearing and chanting that goes on in the morning and in the evening, but during the day, of course we have to concentrate on our job. But the default position, as soon as you're not thinking of your job, your consciousness should be falling to Krishna. Right? Of course you have to concentrate on your job. Imagine if you're an airline pilot, right? And you're just up there dreaming about Krishna, not concentrating on the job. Disastrous consequences. So you're concentrating on your job while you're doing your job, but as soon as that opportunity is there for not even to concentrate on that intensely on it, the default position will be, if we have proper training, we'll automatically start thinking of Krishna and Krishna associated activities. It's just a natural inclination. Of course, we've learned many bad habits, but we should cultivate that habit of always thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna's devotees, thinking of Krishna's service. One of our godbrothers, Kalma, he's saying that he always has a project. He always has a project. I don't know if any of you follow Kalma, but he's always got a project he's working on. So we always should always have a project in our mind, some service that we can do for Krishna. And that is the nature of real spiritual life. In the spiritual world, the living entities there, they're always meditating on how to serve Krishna nicely, better. Right? That is their meditation. But it's not a one-way street. Krishna is also thinking how he can please his devotees. So he's always trying to think of those. That's an aspect also. So as devotees, we should always have some project in our mind that we can focus our minds on. Of course, we have a daily project that's getting 3 to 16 rounds. That's our first priority. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Prabhupada said recently, he said that as soon as you chant Krishna's name, immediately you contact the spiritual world. So that's a wonderful opportunity for us. So immediately you start chanting Krishna's name, you chant that purely, immediately you can make contact with the spiritual world. So in our covered condition, sometimes it's difficult for us to appreciate some of these statements. That you can actually become directly in contact with the spiritual realm just by chanting Krishna's name purely. In Kali Yuga, Krishna is incarnated in his holy name. He's non-different from his holy name. That is his special mercy. So it's a great boon, isn't it? It's such a great boon. And as long as you have a tongue and ears, then you can take advantage of that great boon. So I think I'll finish there. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah. The process of yoga. Sometimes when there are questions, we wonder whether we've said anything about it. Or is it all so straightforward that there's nothing to question? A couple of verses I forgot to mention, I'd like to mention them now later on. It's probably elusive in the purport. How the one who accepts the lotus feet of the spiritual master will be cultivating knowledge, all of that automatically good. So one of that verse is referring to as Yashadeva Parabhakti, Tata Tebe Tata Baro, Tashaiti Katita Yata, Pakasante Mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have embraced faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. And another verse I was going to mention is Savai Pumsam, this is 126, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Savai Pumsam Karo Dhammo Yato Bhakti Bhoksite Ahaitu Apatiya Yayatma Suprasidati. The supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy itself.